G'day guys, Dom here. So first off, I want to say a huge thank you to all you guys, all the guys that are watching the videos, all the guys that have just bought my gear. We had a record week of sales last week and I'm very, very happy about that. Literally spent days and days just shipping stuff to get it out there, and we're still not quite caught up. We've got one more shipment of stuff going out to Australia Post today, and then we're finally caught up with everything. It was nuts. We had to get a whole team basically. I had called everybody I knew, and we all worked together to get stuff shipped out there. So huge thank you to all you guys, I really appreciate it. Also, a huge thank you to my new patrons. So we have currently Corey, Dan, Christopher, Mikey, and Twilight997. I really appreciate you guys supporting the channel. It helps get better content out there like this. We've just picked up a lav mic, so we might actually be a little bit more professional right now. I'm hoping it's gonna kind of fix our echo issues or at least help them. But at the end of the day, we are in a big factory, so it kind of does echo a little bit. But anyway, I thought it'd be kind of a cool video to kind of show you my first knives, or as I like to call them, knife abortions, because they're not pretty. I've got some of the worst first knives. This is a knife that I'm a little bit ashamed to show. I would probably rather show my nudes on camera than show this knife. It is ugly. It is about as far from a nice knife as you'll ever get. So, let's paint a bit of a picture here. I was a young child. I definitely wasn't a teenager yet, but I was a bit of a shithead kid. And I was throwing something at my brother for whatever reason, and I smashed the window. So my parents decided we're gonna obviously fix the window, but they wanted to redo the window ones as well. So when they were fixing the window ones and stuff, I was helping my dad, or at least holding the screwdriver. And I saw this little chunk of mild steel, which is the base for the window one. It was about yay big, mild steel, galvanized, and all that sort of stuff with some holes drilled in it. And I thought, hey, I wanted to try making a knife. What if I take this piece of mild steel, essentially, and I just steal it, and I'll figure out how to make a knife from it? Well, I didn't really think I was gonna make a knife. I really just thought, oh, I'll make a shiv out of it for zombies or something. But that's what I did. So I took this little bit of mild steel, and I sort of in secret, sort of didn't, because I thought I might get in trouble if my parents knew about it, sort of started making a knife out of it. I had a hacksaw, and I had a file, kind of. And I went to work whenever I could, really just working away at it, using whatever scraps I could find around the place. Some bits of oak I took out of the firewood pile, some dowels, some timber dowels I found somewhere, and then some spray adhesive foam, you know, the stuff that foams up, and made myself this abortion. So, feast your eyes on my greatest shame. It is, as you can see, galvanized steel, and you can kind of see here where I was hacksawing it, got sick and tired of it, stopped, and then tried to hacksaw it into chunks, and it didn't work. You end up with this this serrated kind of edge here. And I kind of told myself, oh, it's real good for battening. You kind of got a dedicated area there for battening. But yeah, it was just me being lazy. And you can kind of see here at the tip, I've worn off the galvanizing because I was actually throwing it all the time. I made like a little timber target, and I was throwing it at that target all the time to try and make it stick and pretend I was a knife thrower. Never was any good at it, but hey, I pretended and tried, and it was cool. You can see here we've got some timber dowels there as well, and the handle that sort of roughly fits, kinda, and then a paracord lanyard on there as well. But yeah, that was my first ever knife. It was cool. I was very proud of myself for making it. And it was sort of the seed that led me onto the next step. It made me want to be better at this sort of stuff and make better knives, you know? I had no idea knife making was a thing, but it sort of evolved from there. I made shanks that are like scissors, really. Like I'd take scissors apart and I'd sharpen them up, or I'd take mild steel, whatever I could find really, and sharpen those up and try and make knives out of them. And it kind of grew from there. And then one day I found the internet, and I found a whole bunch of hillbilly redneck people making knives out of whatever they could find, basically files and stuff, and 1084 and that sort of stuff. The knife community wasn't what it is nowadays. When I started getting into it, there was a lot less good information on there. There was a lot of information on forums, but I just had YouTube. So I saw this one video about a guy saying, oh, I made this knife with only a file at a 1084. And I thought, oh shit, I've got a file, I can do that. So I researched, and I found myself some 1084 on eBay. Now this was like $40 Australian for the steel, and it was another $40 to ship a chunk of 1084 this big to Australia. So I asked for it for my Christmas present, and I got a piece of 1084, sorry, in the mail. And this is what I came up with. Now, I filed on this thing for months and months and months. It took me so long. I didn't have any real tools. I had basically a dull file, essentially, a file that my father was using in his factory, and it was too dull for him to use. And then I took it and, tried to use it to make knives with it. And that file was so dull that it took me God knows how many hours to file in those bevels. Definitely over 15 hours to file in these bevels, because I wanted to do a proper full height grind. And it was brutal. But I kind of just, stuck my headphones in and worked at it, 30 minutes a day after school, just every single day until it got done. And it came out okay. The handles here are walnut, and these are some fittings from the local hardware store out of brass or something. I figured I had a cannonball them, which was kind of cool. I was proud of myself for that. And yeah, it took a really, really long time. That's the main thing. This is probably the most amount of time I've ever spent on any project was this knife, and I was just determined to get it done. Hand sanding was especially brutal, because you think about it, you've got file marks you're trying to get out with 100 grit sandpaper you get from Bunnings, which is the worst sandpaper you could ever get. But hey, it was the beginning of my real knife making, where I started making real knives. And I actually used this thing. I took it out camping every now and then. I eventually reground it when I got my machines, and it was actually a really good knife. I carried it for a bit and it worked well for me. Heat treat it in a bonfire, by the way. So, the heat treat's great, like up here, and then down here it starts to get shit. But hey, that's what I had. And that's sort of where we started to move from. I had my Lunisher at that point, and I sort of made a bunch of knives from there. Most of those I don't have. I've got a few of them hung up on the walls around here, but there's nothing too interesting. Until this one. This was the first knife I wanted to make that was going to be like real badass, real big chopper. I was watching Gavco at the time, and he was making these big badass chopping knives, big swords and stuff. So I thought, I'm going to get myself some 1/4" 01 tool steel. I'm going to make myself a sword. And that's pretty much what I came up with. As you can see, it was longer, and then some things happened and it got shorter, essentially. But yeah, this was a 1/4", my first knife that I was super, super proud of. It's got some G10 handles on there. That's my first time working with G10. You got some brass pins in there as well, because it's cool. It's what I had. And yeah, that was my first real knife that I was proud of. I called it Tombstone and stuff, and I was super, super thrilled with this. I thought I was actually going to do a run of them as well. I thought I was going to make a whole bunch and sell them, and that never really worked out. But I was very proud of this knife, and I chopped a whole bunch of stuff with it, including a tendon, but that's another story. And then that was sort of the basis of that. And then obviously time went on. I became a full-time knife maker, and my knives increased dramatically. And I wanted to make my first folding knife. Now, ever since I became a full-time knife maker, I wanted to make folding knives. It was my passion. It's something I really, really wanted to do. And that didn't come easily to me. I worked a very long time. I probably had about 15 or 20 failed attempts to make a folding knife. I was just trying to, as is usually the problem with me, I like to just dive straight in and figure it out as I go along. And you can do that with fixed blades, no problem. You can do that with friction folders, no problem. But when it comes to folding knives, you will get brutally, brutally beaten down if you just jump into a folder or if you rush a folder. Folders take a long time, and you need to be patient with them, which was something it took me a while to learn. So I sort of stepped back a little bit, and I had to sort of take it on, piece by piece. So with that philosophy, I said, I want to make a folding knife. I want it to open, I want it to close, I want it to lock. I don't want that to be a detent or anything. I don't want to overcomplicate things too much. I just want to be the most simple folding knife possible to kind of give me a basis. And this is what I came up with. Now you can see it is a titanium blade, because that's what I had, titanium liners, but it locks, and it locks solid. It's never failed on me, nothing like that. It opens, it closes. It's not pretty. It's not obviously in any way a done knife. It's more of a prototype, but I was so happy that I got a knife to lock. It was one of the best moments of my life. I literally screamed, "Fuck yes!" And I went and showed everybody I could that actually made a knife that opens and closes and locks. I was so, so happy with this. And it was the start of what is now, the Primuses. We make a decent amount of folding knives today, and I've sold folding knives for over $1,000, which is, mind-blowing to me. I'm very, very proud of that. And that was sort of, the basis of everything. We kind of evolved a little bit. This was the first knife where I had a detent. And this is obviously nowhere near done, but I got a detent, I got it to lock, and it does all those sort of things as well. But that was where it all kind of came from. It was, you know, slow going. Nothing really came easily, unfortunately. I wish it did. I wish I had a story where I was like, oh yeah, I made one knife and I was amazing at it. There was sort of a lot of work, a lot of slow steps, and a lot of these days you can see a lot of the early knives I make, and some of them were pretty good, some of them were rough. There's a few knives I wish I could have taken back and never sold, but I think those guys got a really good deal these days, because I see those knives, some of the early works I've done, they're actually being sold for more than I sold them for. So I very much appreciate that. I think, you know, obviously I'm embarrassed by them, but if they're keeping their market value, then hey, what can I say? Anyway guys, I thought it'd be kind of cool to show you my first knives. I've got another video planned where I explain the story about how I got into knives. I'll probably put that up next week sometime. It's kind of a weird story, but if you guys are interested in seeing that, let me know. But hey, I want to hear about your first knives, I want to hear about your first knife abortions and all that sort of stuff. I think it'd be kind of cool, get a bit of a dialogue going. But anyway guys, thanks for watching, I really appreciate it, and I'll see you tomorrow.